Superman is one of the most powerful beings in all of fiction. This is a guy that can hold stars and black holes in his hands, so surely the most powerful villain to go up against him is a cosmic god or an eldritch horror, right? No, it's this little guy in a bowler hat that's voiced by Gilbert Gottfried.
In your face, Superman!
This is Mr. Mxyzptlk. He's an imp from the 5th dimension, and because of that, he has complete power over the 3rd dimension, allowing him to do pretty much anything. Let me show you what I mean. Because I exist in the 3rd dimension, I can grab a Sharpie and manipulate a 2D world however I see fit. Hell, I can even destroy the 2nd dimension. And what's even crazier is that because you're watching me on a flat screen right now, you could rip this video, throw it into an editing program, and completely mess with me. This total control over reality is why Superman regards Mr. Mxyzptlk as the most deadly threat the world has ever faced, and it makes for one hell of a character. But what's even crazier is that among all of the infinite realities, from the comics to the TV shows to the video games to the coloring books, there is only one Mr. Mxyzptlk. Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. Let's talk about it. But before getting too far into things, I want to give a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Kitsch. My favorite physical trait is my thick hair, and my wife has been getting on my case about taking better care of it for years. But luckily, Kitsch sent me some amazing hair care products, and I am in love.
Said no nudity, but they wanted me to show how the product works anyway. But yeah, I was really skeptical about bar shampoo and conditioner, but honestly, the results were immediately obvious because my hair feels shinier, stronger, and healthier from the get-go. I also really like that I'm reducing single-use plastics by not having giant bottles. And this self-draining soap dish is incredible. It saves so much room in my shower. I got shampoo in my eyes.
If you click my link and use the code ComicDrake, the shampoo and conditioner combo is less than $25. Plus, you'll get 25% off site-wide. They even have a subscription option for an even better deal, which you can easily take advantage of because Kitsch ships to the US and internationally to over 90 countries. So once again, big thank you to Kitsch for sponsoring today's video and keeping my hair looking fantastic. But now, let's get back to it. Created by Jerry Siegel and Ira Yarborough, Mxyz made his first appearance in Superman number 30 in 1944. And from the get-go, this dude was chaos incarnate. He got hit by a car and plays dead for fun, but then he steals an ambulance, drives it straight up a building, and then blows it up. But when Superman tries to stop him through a blow-off, Mxyz just disappears. This is a kind of opponent that Superman had never faced before, and despite being just a silly little guy, there wasn't a damn thing that he could do to stop Mxyz's prank wave. Circus animals were on the loose, statues were coming to life, and appliances were completely out of control. We find out later in the issue that Mxyz is a court jester from the Kingdom of Zerf in an alternate dimension, and when poking around a scholar's research, he discovered 2 magic words. One of them took him to the 3rd dimension, and the other one would return him home. So Superman is just like, okay, what's the word? And Mxyz says it, proving the imp back from whence he came. But this raises an interesting question. See, the word that sends Mxyz back is his own name spelled backwards, Klipzixim, which that's a bit of a weird coincidence, right? Interestingly, we never learn what the magic word that sent him to the 3rd dimension was, but take a look at the book that he discovered it in, Mxyzptlkology. I'm willing to bet that the magic word is literally just Mxyzptlk, and he decided to use that as an alias, because after all, we learn in future stories that his true name is unpronounceable to the 3rd dimensional tongue. Now, these old Superman comics were anthologies that featured multiple stories per issue, and Mxyz's debut wasn't deemed important enough to be on the front cover. His story was way in the back of the issue, but clearly something about him resonated with readers, and thanks to popular demand, he returned just a few months later as a recurring antagonist. After being bested by Superman, Mxyz became absolutely obsessed with the Big Blue Boy Scout, and over the years he would constantly pop back over to Earth to enact all sorts of hijinks and shenanigans, like cursing Clark with bad luck, trying to marry Lois Lane, bringing movie characters to life, or literally turning the United States into a chessboard and moving around gigantic pieces while civilians desperately tried not to get crushed. Every single time, Superman gets Mxyzptlk to say or write his name backwards in a new and creative way. But even though Mxyz gets angry every time that he's outsmarted, he keeps on coming back for more, thinking that this time it'll be him that comes out on top. it's all just a big game, and for as powerful and dangerous as he is, the imp's antics never leave any lasting damage because everything that he's done with his magic vanishes alongside with him. But after appearing for a pretty regular basis, Mxyz started having extended disappearances in the comics, eventually returning in his now iconic otherworldly outfit. And allegedly, Superman writer Jerry Coleman forgot how to write his name, which gave us a brand new spelling that is still being used to this day. And on top of that, the details about Mxyz's lore were starting to cement themselves, because for the longest time, he was appropriately inconsistent. For example, we didn't know what dimension he even came from. Was it the 4th, 5th, 6th, or even 7th dimension? The comics eventually settled on the 5th, along with taking his all-over-the-place respawn time and locking it down to 90 days, which, fun fact, is the amount of time that elapsed between his first and second comic appearances. That's really cute. I love that. Tightening up and adhering to continuity was something that DC was trying to take more seriously across all of their comics, and they were also trying to give their characters more science-based powers. Famously, you have the Golden Age Green Lantern Alan Scott, whose ring was powered by magic, whereas Hal Jordan, the Silver Age Green Lantern, had alien technology for a ring. During this same time, DC tried, and failed, to give Mxyz a scientific explanation by claiming that the vibrations that are created by Mxyz saying his name backwards opens up a portal to the 5th dimension and teleports him back. But I don't know, man. I feel like trying to add logic to such a chaotic character kinda defeats the entire point, especially because it was shown that a backwards recording of his voice was enough to open this vibrational portal. Like, if it's that easy, then why doesn't Superman just carry around a tape recorder at all times? He knows Mxyz's gonna come back every 90 days. But anyway, as a part of streamlining their continuity, DC established that their Golden and Silver Age publications took place on 2 separate universes, Earth 1 and Earth 2. DC explicitly stated that the Earth 1 and Earth 2 Mxyzs were similar, but distinct. The Golden Age version even still had the original spelling and suit to help tell them apart. But there's also a separate Bizarro version of him from Bizarro World.
But Drake, you literally said at the beginning of the video that there was only one Mxyzptlk across the multiverse.
We're getting there, Jesus! To be entirely honest, the Silver Age Mxyzptlk from Earth 1 is practically the exact same dude as the original one from Earth 2. I mean, even the pranks would feel right at home in the 50s. He swaps Superman and Shazam's powers. He literally erases Metropolis with an eraser. He makes everyone in the world speak a different language every few seconds, and transforms kids into their Halloween costumes, but then swaps them out at the last minute so that Superman was beating up literal children. There's also the time that he tries to get Supergirl to marry him, and when she rejects him, Mxyz brings her parents back to life as a bribe, but they know that Supergirl doesn't love him, so her parents force Mxyz to say his name backwards, which kills them in the process as the magic dissipates, essentially forcing Supergirl to watch her parents die all over again. Yeah, weird recurring theme, but Mxyz really wants to get married, and when he finally does tie the knot with the hot lady, it turns out that she was just disguising herself with a 5th dimensional spell, which causes him to get the marriage immediately annulled. But it's okay. He ends up getting a hot girlfriend, and the two of them are madly in love.
Seriously, what do you see in that guy?
He makes me laugh.
For some reason, there was a period of time where DC tried out the adventures of a young Mxyzptlk that played tricks on Clark Kent back when he was a kid, which was super unnecessary and makes the timeline confusing for no reason whatsoever. But it's exactly that kind of nonsense that led to DC to streamline their continuity through the iconic event Crisis on Infinite Earths, which proceeded to destroy the entire multiverse and instead present a single, easy-to-understand universe that could be taken more seriously. Writer John Byrne set out to consolidate the new Superman status quo by doing away with all the goofy elements of his past, like stripping Supes of his absurd and ridiculous powers and his gaggle of silly side characters. But in a truly baffling move, Mr. Mxyzptlk made his return on the 11th issue of the rebooted Superman comic. And not only that, but he is completely the same. I mean, sure, he could be seen as more sadistic in moments where he folds a man into a Transformers toy who is screaming in agony the entire time, but he's still more or less the same goofball that gets up to zany antics like changing the world into a living cartoon. So what, Krypto the Superdog was too nonsensical to have in comics, but a magic guy from the 5th dimension gets to stick around? It's almost as if Mxyz is too powerful to be contained by the writers themselves, and that existing in the 5th dimension made him completely immune to the multiverse's destruction. And to go one step further, it is heavily implied that Mxyz exists in the Marvel universe as well as the character Impossible Man, so I guess he transcends the Omniverse too. In his post-crisis introduction, Mxy swooped in as a suave and sexy version of Clark Kent with a full 80s perm. He mind-controlled Lois Lane into going on a date with him, proposed to her at the end of it, and when she said yes, he said, "Actually, this mannequin is way hotter than you." So he brings it to life, walks off with her, and then leaves Lois in the store as the new mannequin. As soon as Superman shows up, Mxy shoves his new doll to the side and transforms into his normal self. He says that his name won't translate, so he conjures up a typewriter and hits a few keys at random, coming up with Mr. Mxyzptlk. And you know the deal. Get him to write or say his name backwards, and he'll leave. Soup says, "Hey, I bet you can't type those letters randomly again," so Mxy says bet and gets to typing. But Clark had already written his name backwards minus the M, so after his first keystroke, Mxy completed the backwards name, banishing him back to the 5th dimension. Now, Superman was off in space when Mxy inevitably returned to Metropolis for revenge, so he decided to harass Lex Luthor instead. But this baby bald boy outwitted the imp by doing the one thing that he could never conceive of: lying. This act of being a poor sport left a bad taste in Mxy's mouth, so when he later noticed that Lex was dying of cancer, Mxy gave Luthor one last chance to take down Superman before kicking the bucket. Mxy provided Lex with special red kryptonite that would strip Superman of his powers under the one condition that Luthor could never tell him where he got it. And man, Luthor takes full advantage of the situation by beating the ever-living shit out of Supes, but not killing him, because he thinks he's too good for that. Lex's arrogance would prove to be his undoing, because when Clark Kent shows up at his office, demanding for him to reveal the source of the red K, Luthor couldn't help himself and brags that he received it from Mr. Mxyzptlk. But not knowing that Clark was Superman, this broke the agreement, and thus his powers came back. And dude, it is so obvious that this entire thing was just a scheme to get back at Lex for lying to him. Luthor was pissed and said, "You lied to me. You said I couldn't tell Superman, but you broke the agreement because I only told Kent." And Mxy is like, "Who? Me? Lie? I would never do that. What kind of monster lies to people?" Mxy being a petty little bitch is so much fun because his best stories are those monkey's paw moments where things backfire in fun and unpredictable ways, such as when he started granting every wish the people of Metropolis made, like a baker wanting her dough to rise so it grew so much that it took over her entire shop. But for as much as he complains about Superman, Mxyzptlk clearly thinks that he is the coolest dude. Take for instance the iconic Adventures of Superman number 463 where Mxy meets the Flash. He's like, "Whoa dude, you're fast as hell. Think you could beat Superman in a race?" Soup says, "I kind of just assumed that I was faster." And Flash got so offended that he demanded they race. So they do. And naturally Mxyzptlk tries to mess with it every step of the way. When Flash ends up winning, Mxy is genuinely shocked because for as much as he tries to deny it, he is Superman's biggest fan. You can really see this when Lois and Clark were broken up, because Mxy was heartbroken, desperately trying to get them back together and breaking the fourth wall in the process. And when they finally got hitched, he personally popped over to congratulate Clark. Plus, the goal is to annoy Superman, not make his life a living hell. And when he sees that Superman is in the middle of serious shit, he will willingly send himself back to not get in the way. This kind of intense fanboyism constantly puts Mxy at odds with another fifth-dimensional imp, Batmite, who, as you might expect, is Batman's #1 fan. This culminates in the amazing World's Funnest comic written by Evan Dorkin, where they get into a fight and end up killing everything and everyone in the crossfire. Batman, Superman, the Justice League, Darkseid, nobody could stop them. This conflict got so bad that the imps went full Gurren Lagann and started throwing planets and galaxies at each other, resulting in the total destruction of the universe. But that doesn't slow them down, as Mxyzptlk and Batmite tear through every other universe and even the real world, where Mxy pulls a 9/11 just 1 year before the actual thing. The wildest thing about this book is that at this point in time, the DC multiverse still hadn't been reestablished from its destruction in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they were instead using a concept called hypertime to present the alternate realities. But yeah, Mxy and Batmite completely destroyed hypertime and then rebuilt it in the blink of an eye once they got bored. That is a truly insane amount of power. World's Funnest is a love letter to all things DC, and so many artists from across the company's history came back to draw and paint the various universes. And funnily enough, it wouldn't be the last time that Mr. Mxyzptlk would interact with the real-world DC comics. Alright, that's getting too annoying to edit. But what if all of that power went to someone with a different kind of whimsy? Someone who isn't Superman's biggest fan, but instead, Batman's greatest nightmare. Enter the Joker. As a joke, Mxyz gave the Clown Prince of Crime just 1% of his power, but Mr. J tricked Mxyz into revealing his true name and managed to take 99.9% of it. 69 seconds later, nice, he rewrote the universe in his image. With the last of his magic, Mxyz managed to restore Superman's memories before getting captured by the Joker. But luckily, Superman is able to get him to drop his guard by exploiting the Joker's one weakness. See, despite being an all-powerful god, he is still obsessed with Batman. Every single day, he kills the Dark Knight in a new and creative way, only to resurrect him the next day and do it all over again. So Superman claims that he didn't have the power to fully erase Batman, even if he wanted to. Naturally, the Joker tries to prove him wrong, but no matter how hard he tries, Batman persists. Because on a fundamental level, Batman defines the Joker, and if a god isn't strong enough to get rid of one measly human, how could he possibly control the entire cosmos? While he was distracted, Mxyz was able to take all of his magic back and fix the space-time continuum. But as time went on, Mr. Mxyzptlk made less and less appearances in the comics, likely because writers didn't know what to do with him in the modern era. They threw around the idea of Mxyz having been all of the trickster gods from across history, but that didn't stick. What is it about trickster gods specifically where writers try to make them all the same dude across cultures? Regardless, that very same issue is where we get the idea that Mr. Mxyzptlk is the same guy across the multiverse, and that is an idea that works so much better because it doesn't matter if he's a little bald guy or an anime character, a drunk dude, or a suave British lad, he functions more or less the same. It's just odd that they tried to make him both a god and a omniversal being in the same issue. For more details on that, you have to watch Watchtower Database's dedicated video because they uncover some amazing details. But then, Flashpoint happened, rebooting the DC universe for its second and final time, and this gave them the opportunity to redefine Mr. Mxyzptlk for the modern era. The only problem is that The Imp's Return was written by Grant Morrison, a writer that is known for creating some of the most over-the-top and confusing nonsense in all of comics. I love the work, but hard to follow. See, Morrison's Mxyz is a court magician that kept a three-dimensional universe wrapped up in his hat, which he would use to entertain his depressed king. He would end up dating the princess and making another magician mad, so they reincarnate on Earth, but like, the evil magician is reborn as their child or something, and then the evil magician baby dude attacks Superman with a spear that's able to target him throughout multiple points in time all at the same time, and none of this matters. Because look, as soon as Morrison was off the book, nobody else wanted to use Mxyzptlk, the Fifth Dimension, or all the other related characters. In fact, Mxyz was taken out of the comics altogether by being kidnapped by Superman's long-lost dad, who didn't want him injecting chaos into his son's life. Because Supes and Mxyz have been through so much over the years, the little guy thought that Superman would notice that he stopped popping in and would try to look into what happened. But much like the readers, Clark didn't seem to notice or care about Mxyz's disappearance. And this broke the Imp's heart. It doesn't matter how many times the universe gets reset or how many times Superman forgets about him, Mxyz would loyally return to play pranks on the Man of Steel. I mean, they're technically enemies, but after all this time and everything they've been through, you would think that Mxyz is like an annoying family member that you only see on the holidays. But for as much as you might roll your eyes at their stupid jokes, the house feels noticeably more empty when they're not there on Christmas, you know? Realizing that Superman wasn't going to be there to save him, Mxyzptlk says his name backwards over and over and over again, causing explosions that eventually crescendo together to create a hole in the prison that he can escape from. And when attempting to lay low to avoid being captured yet again, Mxyz comes up with the identity of Clark Kent, casting a spell that was so powerful that even he believed that he was Clark. Which was kind of a problem because the actual Clark was supposed to be dead. Look, long story short, the post-Flashpoint Superman had recently died, and the entire world knew that he was Clark Kent. But because of cosmic bullshit, the pre-Flashpoint Superman was also hanging around, and was pretty naturally confused as to why there was yet another version of himself running around here when the other one had just died. But Clarkspttlk not only served to show the world that Kent was still alive, but it also helped cement this secret identity, because both Clark and Superman were publicly seen together, so clearly they couldn't be the same person. Look, the whole two Supermen thing was really dumb and kind of pointless, but the important thing here is that because Mxyz genuinely believed that he was Clark Kent, he thought that he was in a relationship with Lois Lane, even going so far as to propose to her. But when she says no, Clarkspttlk follows her home and saw through a window that she was having dinner with the real Clark and their son John. and suddenly, Mxy remembered everything. Mxyzptlk saw John as a replacement that was distracting Superman from their never-ending games, and he tries to erase John from the minds of his parents, but luckily, love conquers all, and John manages to use Mxy's fifth-dimensional powers to fuse both the pre- and post-Flashpoint Superman and their histories together because comics. But for as chaotic and convoluted as this comic was, this story is actually a great deep dive into the inner working of Mxy's mind and his relationship with Superman, and it is the entire reason that I wanted to make this video in the first place. In DC Comics, the fifth dimension is imagination itself, and what Mr. Mxyzptlk represents is what it means to let your imagination run wild. Yeah, he's ridiculous, unpredictable, and maybe one of the dumbest characters from a concept perspective, but that is exactly the point. Superheroes lose something when we take them too seriously. I mean, sure, the battles and drama are a ton of fun, but we didn't get here overnight. Comic books were just that. Comedic books, funny pages, and some of our most beloved heroes had silly stories, concepts, and characters from the get-go, and Mxy is here to remind us of just that. Loving superheroes means embracing both the silly and the sincere. It means unchaining our imagination and keeping our inner child alive and well, because that is how we build a better tomorrow, both in stories and in real life. Oh wow, a video about a Superman character ends on a note of hope. How original. Look, I had a lot of fun making this video. It was really nice to get back to my roots with PNG tubing from my game theory days, and I just love having this opportunity to share this wonderful character that I initially thought was one of the stupidest things of all time, and actually really enjoying him the more and more I read. I think Mr. Mxyzptlk is great, and I think you should give his books a read. But if you like this video, then why not consider subscribing or even watching another one? In fact, I have a playlist with every single one of my Superman videos, so if you like this, maybe click that and give some more a watch. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.